Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned. Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in free retirement home search and senior transition support.
And I'm Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist, specializing in grief and loss.
Great to be with you, Corey. Coming right up on the first half of today's show, October is Breast Cancer Month, and we're wrapping up the month with a brave breast cancer survivor, Lindsay Finkelstein. You're going to want to hear her story. She's the creator of the very popular Instagram account called Tata to my Tatas.
You got that.
Yep, you heard that right. And a really inspiring story. Can't wait to hear about Lindsay. Corey, I just want to quickly mention, we got a lot of feedback from last week's show. We had two engaging guests, Marco Vendramini, of course, some amazing financial advice, not just about yourselves, but to be concerned about the family. And even more so, the text board was just lit up. Sure. We had two 20-somethings, recovering addicts with Narcotics Anonymous, addicted to marijuana. And with this, all the legal cannabis out there, and it was a way of enlightening everyone that it seems to be common in the cool thing to do, but it was a way of showing everyone that we still have to be very vigilant and responsible.
How important education is. Certainly, it's still a controversial and yet uncharted territory, and that's what we saw with the text. It was incredible. Yeah,
it was amazing. We're proud of that show. Now, we'd be remiss, Corey, if we did not talk about this tragedy, this shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh. Right. Corey, I'm going to ask you to wear your grief and bereavement hat. This is your specialty. I'd like to ask you, there are kids ranging from younger kids to teenagers that are listening. They get their news on TV or nowadays through social media. Mm-hmm. What could you recommend to parents and even grandparents if they want to talk to kids and grandkids?
It's a great question, and fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have a show because I could do a whole show on it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to post an article that I wrote on our Facebook page, and you can email, text, etc. if you want to make sure to get a copy of that. I entitled it "Explaining the Unexplainable," because unfortunately we have had a series of these types of tragedies occur. And it was important to me that people knew or had an idea of where do you even begin. So just as a teaser to that, things like talk less, listen more. That's why we have two ears and one mouth. Mm-hmm. Listen to your child and really hear what they're going to say and follow their lead. But by ignoring it, then you're not doing them any disservice, because then you are leaving them to hear it and talk about it in a way that may not be as helpful or supportive to them and their developmental level. So also think about their developmental level when you're talking. Don't make it the elephant in the room, but short and simple. The words are tragic things happen, bad things happen, but then I want you to start to focus on what you can do. What do you need to feel safe given that this happened? Because naturally, children, especially younger children, assume if this could happen there, this could happen to me. Here, yeah. So those are just some very quick suggestions, and really there's a lot more. You can go onto my website. I have some articles about explaining death to children, explaining the unexplainable, but I will post it on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page.
Excellent words of advice, Corey. Thank you. And that will be on the Life Unrehearsed Facebook page in really trying times in our society. Corey, we have a very interesting second half, don't we?
We do. Coming up is Caregiver Week in Quebec, and Life Unrehearsed has decided, in recognition of that, to begin a 3-part series on caregivers. Our first one's going to start today after the news. We'll be talking to Mark Stolo, the CEO of Huddle, about an innovative online community that he has created for caregivers. It's a very, very interesting project. I've had the opportunity to talk with Mark on a couple of occasions about it, and I am a Huddle user, so it's I'm looking forward to doing that. That's on the second half.
An amazing online community. Can't wait to hear about that. 1 in 4 Canadians are caregivers, and the odds are if you aren't, you probably know one, neighbor, friend, and so on. So that will be after the 4:30 news. All right, let's get right started. October is Breast Cancer Month. It is coming to an end since we are at the end of the month, but we felt it was time, and we wanted to address address this. So we've just some amazing stats, Corey, about breast cancer and how frightening it can be. 1 in 8 Canadian women will develop a breast cancer in their lifetime. 25% of all new cancer cases for women are actually breast cancer cases. However, on the positive side, the breast cancer death rate has been declining for women since the mid-1980s. That being said, 14 Canadian women die every day of breast cancer. Life, Corey, is indeed unrehearsed. And, well, that's why we're very blessed to have, I'd like to call an awe-inspiring woman who's been able to shed a positive light on this disease through her humility, humor, and positive attitude. Lindsay Finkelstein, she's the creator of the very popular Instagram account called Tata to my Tatas. Just love that name, Lindsay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
For those that are watching on Life Unrehearsed Facebook page, they will see that you are a very young woman. So if you don't mind, for listeners that are listening, how old are you?
So I'm actually 24 years old, and I was diagnosed when I was 22.
My goodness. So 24, just so young. Tell us about your story.
Sure. So my story began actually in 2016. It was February when I first felt something in my breast, and nothing happened until I'd say July. Nothing happened because I didn't know that I should be thinking about anything. The word cancer was never in my vocabulary. I was never taught how to do a self-breast examination. And I was really insecure with my body that I never wanted to check if anything was wrong. Fast forward to the summertime, and I was waking up with bloodstains on my bed and on my pajama shirt. And someone who's petrified of blood, I was hoping that I was getting nosebleeds at night and not during the day. And then I took a shower and I saw what looked like a beauty mark, but I knew I didn't have a beauty mark on my nipple, and I touched it, and discharge began to seep out. From there, within a few days, I had gone to see an oncologist, had gone for an MRI, PET scan, et cetera, and I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer.
Just hearing it, but you articulate it so clearly and so
Thank you.
Succinctly, and I know that from that you made a very drastic decision to have a double mastectomy.
Right. It was something I actually kicked myself in the butt so many times. I remember sitting in bed one day and thinking, how in the world can I let myself do a double mastectomy? Because of that, I wasn't able to graduate McGill University on time. Because of that, I wasn't able to get engaged when I wanted to. Because of that, so many things happened that I didn't want to happen. And I remember one day really sitting in my bed crying, and then the next morning I got a phone call from my oncologist saying that when they opened me up, they actually found 7 other malignant tumors. So I just really think that I was so lucky to listen to my gut feeling and really go with my gut, because if I chose to get a lumpectomy, who knows, maybe in a year or 2 years or 3 years when I am breastfeeding my baby, I'd realize I have stage 4 breast cancer and with nothing left to do.
I can't imagine having to make these types of decisions at such a young age. You're saying 22 when all this is going on. So bring us through this. You made this decision, and now you've done the operation.
Yeah.
What is going on with your life after?
So after my my double mastectomy, I started chemotherapy a month and a half after. I did 16 rounds of chemotherapy. It was called ACT. With that, 4 of them were really hard. The last few were really easy. I lost my hair. I gained tons of weight on steroids. My life completely changed, but here I am. So that's all that matters.
And here you are is right. I know you had to address some very personal decisions, and it's approaching 4:15, and we're going to be heading out to traffic soon. But we want to hear about how you address probably your biggest concern about what am I going to do about having children. But first, let's head.
Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Sirota with Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking with breast cancer survivor and the founder of the very unique Instagram account, Tata, to my Tatas, Lindsay Finkelstein. She's amazing. She's got energy. She's got spunk, and she's got the answers to some very, very tough questions. So, Matt asked you before we went out to traffic, there's a lot of concerns. Someone who is 22 years old, diagnosed with breast cancer, decides to do a double mastectomy. You had shared with us off air that one of your biggest concerns was, well, what about kids? How is this going to affect my ability to have children? Can you talk about that a
Sure.
little bit,
So
please?
something that differentiates me from some of my best friends is that I wanted to get married at a really young age. That means I wanted to start a family at a young age and the whole 9 yards. So when I was first diagnosed with cancer, one of the first questions that I asked my oncologist, besides, am I going to lose my hair, was what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to have kids? Thank God that I asked that question, because that kind of guided me in the path of what to do next. Had I not asked that question, I probably don't think I would have gone for IVF treatments or IVM treatments, because no one would have approached me. They thought I was still young enough and maybe those weren't my concerns and stuff like that. But having to go through that with someone who you're not married with but want to get married to is challenging. You know, you're faced with so many things like, should we do IVF? Should we there's just so many questions that he's actually a part of too. And then there's also questions that, what if you don't stay together? Are you really going to do this together? So as 22 years old, I decided that I really wanted to freeze my eggs, because God forbid that I'm not able to have children naturally, I'm going to need a backup plan. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. I went through IVM, which is in vitro maturation, and then I did fertilization, because the first one didn't work, so I had to go through the second one. And right now I have 17 frozen eggs. Okay. So so I'm set on that. But yeah, it's always scary, what the unknown of what if you're not able to have kids naturally.
That's Lindsay Finkelstein, breast cancer survivor, had a double mastectomy at 22 years old. You are a ripe old age now, Lindsay, of 24. But you talked about, you wanted to get married young, and check on that box. We have John, your husband, actually in studio watching and supporting you behind the scenes here. So good on you. Congratulations.
Thank
that was
you so
just
much.
Last month, wasn't it? Or
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So not only was he there, he's been there for everything, every single appointment I've had.
Amazing. So now we have to get to this. I'm amazed with this Instagram account that you created, brave soul that you are. Tata to my tatas. Let's hear about it.
So the name is self-explanatory, right? I had a double mastectomy. I said goodbye to my breasts, so Tata to my tatas. It's a play on words. The reason why I started it was that I wanted to get my story out with my immediate inner circle. Right away, with no strings attached, with no she said this or no I heard that. It was there. You read it, you know the truth, and that's it. There was so many people that I wanted to fill in, and there were so many things that I wanted to share. For example, choosing implants. For example, going for blood tests that I'm absolutely petrified about. So there were so many things that I wanted to share, and that was the best platform. And what grew between 100 followers is now close to 5,000 followers.
Wow.
Which is amazing, because I have people from Australia, New Zealand, and Brazil messaging me, sharing the exact same thing. We're such a unique community, young breast cancer patients and survivors and thrivers. So
survivors and thrivers. Yeah. What a wonderful, wonderful way of putting it. I looked at the account. I've now followed you as well, so that's 5,001. And what I noticed is you're very beautifully candid on it. I understand that professionally you're a teacher.
Yeah.
So how does that fit in with elementary school kids who could have access to this? Do you ever have an issue with that?
So I've never had an issue, and part of who I am as a person is to educate people, whether that's talking about it with a stranger or sharing it on the radio or introducing my students to being aware of their body parts and, being okay and comfortable in their own skin. So no matter what I'm doing in my life, I believe that my purpose is to educate, and I believe that's why I was given cancer. I took what I had and I'm sharing with the world, and I'm telling them it's okay to not be okay. That being said, as an educator, I took it on myself to share my story and let myself go. And I have parents that commend me, and I have parents that say, you opened up a dinner conversation at our house, because now my daughter asks about, what happens if I feel something, and she's in the 6th grade. That's when your children are going to start to be aware of their body. So, of course, in the next few years, they're going to be aware and feel things, and they're not really going to know what that is. So why not start the conversation now?
Amazing, and good for you for I think proper communication, opening it up.
Absolutely.
Even with, I think you said grade 3, grade 5,
Yeah.
right, were you two, and go at her, let them ask away,
Absolutely.
and you're doing it in a very, I think, a non-threatening way, and just educating. That's Lindsay Finkelstein here on Life Unrehearsed with Corey and Matt, talking about her double mastectomy at 22 years old. She's 24 years old now. We're already running out of time, but we do want to hear, Lindsay, some words of advice. People that are going through that process, that have just been recently diagnosed with breast cancer, or for that matter, it could be cancer in general. What words of advice can you give them?
So my biggest advice is to go with your gut feeling. As I mentioned earlier, I was kind of not told, but I was suggested to get a lumpectomy. You're so young. Why do you need to do something so crazy and out there? And because I got a double mastectomy, I actually saved myself from getting a stage 4 cancer in the future. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring you, but for right now, I did everything in my power to prevent a reoccurrence. And I'm able to go to sleep knowing that, okay, I did as much as I could as in my power. So
you are wise beyond your years, no question about it. And really, I appreciate so much that you've come on the show and shared your energy and your positive approach to something that is really tough. This is about demystifying difficult topics, and you really did well there.
Incredible. Lindsay, thank you very much. How can people get a hold of you?
So, sure, on my Instagram page, there is you could either send me an inbox, a private message, or you could send me an email. That either or I'll answer.
Thank you so much. Coming up after the news, we're going to be embarking on a 3-part series on caregivers, given that next week is Caregiver Week in Quebec. Our first of 3 is going to start right after the news. We're going to be talking about a revolutionary online community for caregivers. It's called Huddle. We'll have the CEO, Mark Stolo, in studio with us to tell us all about it.
Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.